What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. In this one I'm going to be showing you how to install a performance carb along with a performance carbon fiber reed on your 47cc/49cc engines. Let's get started. If you're following the build on this one, we've so far did the big bore install, we did the rocket key install, we also did a crank modification, and now we're going to deal with the carburetor today. If you guys followed the last update video, I did pick up the Dylon 14x14 carb, and I've had this carbon fiber reed sitting around for a while, and I figured that we would do that since we're going to be dealing right where the reed is. So let's get into it. You're going to start by removing the stock air filter, which should just be attached with the hose clamp. So right off the bat, we can already see the restrictions with the stock setup. This overly thick air filter housing, along with just look at all that rubber in there. There's barely a hole. I mean, not a lot of air is going to be able to get through this setup. So by removing that housing, it exposes two Allen heads that attach the carburetor to the engine. Now we can go ahead and remove those two Allen heads, and the carburetor should just come right off. Next, to get the intake off, it's another 4 Allen heads that we have to remove. Alright guys, so we're almost done already, and since I've had the reed off before, it popped right off, but you may have to put a screwdriver under it and just kind of peel it up. Just be sure to keep intact your gaskets, but I'm going to be go ahead and taking the safe route and replacing all my gaskets anyways, since we are doing this install. In that update video, I also mentioned that I was waiting for the intake manifold that will work for the Dylon carburetor. Here it is. It is a Blada 2.5 intake, and as you can see, this is why I needed it for the setup, because it slides right into the Dylon perfectly. It also came with the Blada 2.5 reed setup that I'm going to be trying out in my engine. I feel that it will be better since the Blada engines are better. Maybe you guys, I almost dropped it. Maybe you guys have more info on this setup. Maybe I should be using the stock one, but I'm going to be trying the Blada one to start off, and this is where we're going to be doing the reed swap, so let's do that right now. A reed swap is one of the best and one of the easiest things you can do to your 47cc engine, and all you have to do is remove these two Phillip heads, and that exposes your reed. The one thing with doing a reed swap is it's important that we get this notch correct and on the right side, and that is going to be going to the right side if we're looking at it as we are like this. And that's how it's going to go on. Now we can just go ahead and put our plate back on with the 2 screws, and that mod is done. So that's done, guys. The carbon fiber reed is in there, and now we're ready to reinstall everything with the new carb. Now when we're reattaching the reed setup, there's 2 gaskets that we need, and that's this first square one that goes on just like this, and then we have one right here that goes on just like this on the front. So I've got a little bit of a problem right here though with this gasket. It is hanging over a little bit where the reed setup is, and so I'm going to be trimming that down a bit right here, just so it's not, like I said, restricting anything for the most important part of the engine. So there you have it. That is much better. Now it's fully opened up. Now it's important to have the reeds facing just like this, just how they came off. And then we can go ahead and put our intake manifold on top and get a couple bolts started with the gaskets in there, of course, as well. I've talked about this before on the big bore install, but here's the perfect opportunity to go ahead and cross tighten our manifold. You never want to just tighten left to right to down all the way like that. You always want to try to do a star pattern. So let's do that next. There's your cross tightening, but I noticed that these might be easy to over tighten, so just be careful when you are tightening them up. You know, get them nice and snug, but definitely don't go overboard with it. And before I slide the new carburetor onto our intake, these are the 2 differences between the stock and performance carb. This right here is why we're doing this upgrade. Check out how much bigger the Dylon opening is for the fuel. That's almost most important for an engine. So this upgrade is going to do a lot, I think. I'm not going to be tuning it in this video, but I am excited to get this thing running. Then as we're sliding on this carburetor, a good tip is just to line it up with the center case line right there, and it'll line up straight with the carburetor right here. And then we can go ahead and tighten down that flathead screwdriver to get this thing nice and snug. So I'm worried about the lining up of the carburetor right here. I've had this happen in the past where the carburetor will shift left to right because there's just not enough pressure that you can get on this bracket right here. I have snapped these in the past too from over tightening. I don't feel that's going to be the case for the Dylorto since it's just designed better, but I may end up having to create a bracket right here that comes off and then attaches to possibly one of the intake screws right here. That's what I did in the past. This was like, man, 2007 probably I was doing this trick, but it did work really well. I think we went ahead and attached it on this side actually, but yeah, we might have to do that because it does kind of want to move like that. It's tight and everything, but that might be an option for us. Now this is the air filter setup that it came with. I know I won't be using this plastic housing because it's just so restricting. The only opening is right here, but I may still want to use this. This is kind of the idea that I want to do for it. Just a straight mesh screen over it. That allows maximum air into the carb, and it'll just, like I said, allow more air than any big air filter out there. And then this is kind of the idea of how that looks. This would just slide in here, and I may be able to still use this housing because it works perfect with the carburetor obviously, but I may switch out that mesh because it is a little bit thick. There's about 3 layers of it in there, but this is a really sleek setup. And for anyone wondering, I do right now have the full circle crank installed into the engine. I did have it disassembled for about 2 weeks just to let you guys, give me some responses on that turbo crank mod. And of course a lot of people were saying that it may not be perfectly balanced just because it is very hard to do. You can't really split the two sides apart. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, just go check out that video. But yeah, I want to go ahead and try the full circle crank first to start off, but I will be giving that turbo crank mod a try once everything's tuned up in this bad boy. That's pretty much it for this install, guys. 2 installs actually. Pretty simple stuff here. There is some stuff I'm not able to show you yet, and that is the throttle cable setup. I've heard already that I need to get a special throttle cable for the Dylorto. I figured there would be something like that since this is a different carburetor, and the tuning, of course. We need to get the engine running to be able to see what kind of tuning I need to do. There's one main jet in this carburetor, so it makes things very easy is what I've heard, and jet swaps are really easy to do, so that's a good thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed this install or multi-install for the build series here. Check out the other videos on this engine. There's some really good stuff out there. 47cc engine, performance build, community build, I should say. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.